Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the organizational meeting, and we'll stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you administer the oath to the newly elected board members?
If I could have Dr. Bennett, Jody, Goetzman, and Mr. Workman stand up and raise your right hand, please. I'll say all of your names within the confines of this oath, and then at the end I will kind of point at you individually to say I do. So I, Margie Bennett, Tim Workman, and Jody Goetzman solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as a member of the Board of Education for the Mount Vernon City School District in Knox County, Ohio, to the best of my ability, and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office, and until my successor is elected and qualified. Mr. Workman?
I do.
Dr. Bennett?
I do.
Mrs. Goetzman?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can call the roll.
Now we can do a roll call. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mr. Goladai?
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes. Okay, we're all here and all ready to go. And I'd like to welcome everyone this evening and wish you a very happy, prosperous, and healthy 2020. And I'd also like to welcome our newest board member, Mr. Tim Workman. So it's great to have you with us, and I'm looking forward to working with you throughout the year. So welcome, and Mr. Thompson, would you like to share anything this evening?
A lot of things could share, but I would like to call out Mr. Grant Pepper and Knox Pages for a great article on a young man that I got a chance to coach some baseball with in Owen Boffman. That was a pretty cool article about one of our students who went the extra mile to give out of his own pocket. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that article a lot. And look, and know that there's a lot of things that people can put out there that are on negative things, but that was a real uplifting article, and I want to commend you on that. But I really am grateful for Owen. If you get to know Owen, he's a funny guy, and he's the life of the baseball team or whoever he's at. But I was really proud of what he did.
Thank you. Mrs. Goetzman.
Just to say welcome to everybody. Tim, welcome to the board. And we look forward to a great 2020.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goetzman.
Welcome to those in the audience, and welcome to Mr. Workman. We thank him and all of our former board members and present board members for dedicating part of their life to making sure that our children are part of our great public school systems and that they are succeeding. So welcome back and welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And would you like to say something?
Absolutely. Well, Happy New Year, and thank you for attending. With this being my first meeting, certainly excited to be here and looking forward to contributing. Really looking forward to working with all of you. Very much appreciated the opportunity, and looking forward to getting it started.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Cedar, did you say?
I too would like to welcome you. It's always an interesting meeting here in January. It's kind of the start of a new year, and we've kind of gotten off to a fresh new start. I too would like to welcome Tim aboard, and again, we congratulated Mrs. Fiesel on her time on the board last month. So we're excited to have you here. This is an organizational meeting first. So we'll go through some organizational type things here. We may take just a quick little pause, and then we'll go into our regular portion of our meeting. So welcome.
Okay, thank you. We come to election of the president of the Board of Education. So I would open the floor for the nominations.
I would nominate Dr. Bennett if she's willing to take it again.
And I would second that.
Thank you. Are there other nominations? I don't think so, since I've already talked to a couple. Okay, nominations are closed, and would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
I'll abstain, and motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
I open the floor for the nomination for Vice President.
I'd like to nominate Jody Goetzman as Vice President.
I'll second that motion. And hearing no, I will close the nominations, hearing no others. And would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman.
Abstain.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
You to administer the oath.
Great Vice President.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we have a motion to approve the committees, and there's
We're
an,
going to administer the oath of the president and the vice president.
oh, okay. Another oath.
Getting the legwork out today. Stand up.
I'll give that everybody. Are you ready?
All right.
All right, do you solemnly swear that you will support, pretty much the same thing, the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will perform faithfully the duties as President of the Board of Education of the Mount Vernon City School District in Knox County to the best of your ability, in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified?
I will.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will perform faithfully the duties as Vice President of the Board of Education of the Mount Vernon City School District in Knox County, Ohio, to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereinafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is elected and qualified?
I will.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, now we can go to committee appointments. And attachment 1, if you have a chance to look at that.
I have it up on your screen
Oh,
for you.
okay, that helps, thank you. Okay, personnel, we currently have Mrs. Fiesel, who's no longer on the board, and Mrs. Goetzman. And did you prefer to stay on that committee?
I'm flexible.
Okay. And would you like to be on that committee, or Mr. Thompson?
I will.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's do that. And
Okay.
then the second one is Educational Advisory Council, and Mary and I have done that. Are you willing to continue?
Yes, I'd
Mary?
love to.
Okay,
Thank
I am
you.
too. Then Building and Grounds are Goetzman and Thompson. Are you both willing to continue? Okay.
Yes.
And then the last one is Fiesel and Bennett. And I'm happy to allow someone else to do that if they would like to take my place. And then we have another spot because Mrs. Fiesel is no longer with us.
I'll take one of the spots.
You would like to take a spot, okay? Is there Mrs. Goetzman or Mr. Thompson or Ms. Regola-Dye? Is there any? Well, I think we should try to keep it not maybe more than 2 committees that you would
Right.
serve on. But
So we're, if you don't mind.
am I going too fast?
I was going to
Oh,
write
I'm
them down.
sorry.
No, you're fine. So,
Sorry.
educational advisory, we still good with Dr. Bennett and,
Ms. Regola-Dye, right.
and buildings and grounds stayed the same?
Yes. Maybe you could just copy it. Yes.
And I know Mr. Workman was
Right.
on the Business Advisory Council
And he
as one
said
of
he'd
our.
like to do it as a
Do it as
board
a
member
board
rep.
Because we can't have 3 of us at the same place at the same time.
Oh, that's right. Well, Mrs. Fiesel's no longer here, but I'm willing to give up my spot if someone else is interested. Mr. Thompson, you've been on it in the past. Are you interested, or?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay. And we're all set then. Okay. If you'll call the roll, then we'll have an official vote.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a lot of resolutions. And those are before you, and these are pretty standard. There's only one new one to my knowledge, and that is the very last one, which I requested because in the past, some of us have gone to the training, but I have not gone to the training yet for the new term, and it has to be every term you go. So if we officially appoint our treasurer as our representative, then we do not need to worry about being trained personally. So I think that would be a wise thing for us to do. Okay, I would entertain a motion then for that.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. And was there any discussion, any questions about any of those? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Mr. Hankins, were there motions made on the,
You know, I was
I think
just
we missed the
thinking
motion
that.
on
I
the
think
last
I
one.
think you're absolutely
So I
right.
just
We
wanted-
went ahead and voted, but I don't think anyone made the motion for the committee appointments. So if I could have a motion and a second for those.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Do I have a second, Ms. Regola Dye. And do we need to call the roll again? Probably, it would be a good idea, if you would, please.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Hopefully, that'll be the only mistake tonight, but
All year.
It's all good.
all year. Oh
all
dear,
good.
what pressure's on. Okay, the legislative and student liaison and the OSBA delegate. So the legislative liaison, Ms. Gulladai has been doing that.
I'd really like to continue
Oh, great.
that. I
Okay.
really enjoy
Thank
it.
you. And I have been the student achievement liaison, and I'm willing to continue, but I'm not wedded to that spot, so anyone else who's interested may have it. Okay, so I guess it's Ms. Gulladai for legislative, and I will be the student achievement liaison, if we vote that. And then the OSBA delegate and alternate.
I'm happy to do it again. I did it this last year, but
Okay, and we need an alternate then. So, someone willing to be the alternate?
I'll do it.
Okay. And I need a motion then to
Accept those appointments.
So moved.
okay, and I need a second.
Second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Goetzman. And if you want to call the roll, please.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes. Or is that abstain?
what I was thinking too.
No,
abstain.
because we
We wouldn't have enough
We
if
wouldn't have
you,
enough.
if you both abstain, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say yes if you say yes.
Ms.
All right.
Regola Dye,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And I think that's everything except to go.
The appointment of school physician, I think is
Oh, okay. I don't see that.
it's not on the agenda.
attachment number 3.
I thought it was part of the
I
resolution.
was gonna say, I think
Is it
it's
part of
part of,
the
yeah, I think it's part of the
resolution?
resolution.
So I think we've covered everything, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and I think it's adjourn sine die, which means we aren't leaving, we're coming right back, but we do adjourn the organizational meeting and then resume with the regular meeting. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Gulladye. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And if you'll call the roll.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. I mean, thank you. We're adjourned from the organizational meeting. And I think we can go right into the...
I think everybody's here that,
Okay, great. So I will call this meeting to order, and if you'll call the roll, I don't believe anyone's left, but let's be official and call the roll.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December regular meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Goetzman. Were there any corrections? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Abstain.
Mr. Workman,
Would abstain.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, and we've already had comments of board members, so I think we can move ahead to athletic boosters.
Absolutely. So under commendations and communications, we have an exciting presentation from our athletic boosters, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Bob Tiell.
Thank you. As you all have seen, a lot has happened over on the campus since I was last here. It's pretty exciting. I'd like to thank Mr. Cedar, Dr. Bennett, the rest of the school board for what you have done to make the Education Gateway project a reality. And on behalf of the Jacket Boosters, we would like to present you the occupancy permit to the entrance to the stadium and the concession stand.
Awesome.
You want to accept it?
Sure. Thank you for your card.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I tell you, it's a special time when you get an opportunity to have a group come together in such a collaborative way. And I remember it was not so long ago, we leased the Athletic Booster Club the property where the stadium entrance now sits for a whole $1. And we had big plans and dreams, and those dreams have been realized. And I can't say enough about Bob Tiell and his work, his continued work, because he certainly isn't done. But just to get that stadium entrance thing all pulled together, that was all privately done by the Athletic Booster Club, and in such a way that they came in really right on budget. They did a great job of doing that. And it was open before the first home football game. Remarkable feat, and so many people deserve a lot of credit. And I know it's not certainly just Bob; it's a whole group of folks who did it. But you know, Bob, your leadership has been invaluable and continues to be invaluable as we kind of go through the Gateway project. And so, you know, our heartfelt thanks to you and your organization for really spearheading this big thing for us. So thank
I think
you.
you deserve another round of applause.
Thank you.
And so now we have Dan Emmett Elementary. So we've got a couple things going on.
Could we?
Reverse some.
Yes.
Gotcha.
She's on her way.
It's on her way. Okay. So we are going to make a quick adjustment here. Our behind the scenes person from Dan Emmett will be after, hopefully after our presentation from Dan Emmett Elementary itself.
Hello.
So Kitty, I will turn it over to you.
My students at Dan Emmett Elementary are 3rd through 5th graders, all participated in the Empty Bowls project. Students at East, Twin Oak, and Columbia also did this. But we wanted to showcase our students because they did a really fabulous job. So you can go ahead and hit the next slide for me, please. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Empty Bowls project, but this happens across the world where artists use their artistic skills. They often make a clay bowl and donate it to a community event. Sometimes you can buy a supper, a bowl of soup in these bowls, and then you get to keep the bowl. Sometimes they donate them to soup kitchens, different ways like that. We decided that our students would all make an empty bowl, and instead of having a dinner with it, that they could bring in canned goods that would go towards the Food for the Hungry food drive, if you don't mind. So students in grade through 5, they all created a bowl for our Empty Bowls art show. There is one of our 4th graders showing.
And actually, that is the behind-the-scenes son.
Yes, so that was and he was a very good sport, and he showed off his bowl for me. Next slide, please. And so how they created this, each student was given roughly about 1 pound of clay, and they learned the different processes that you use when you're creating a clay project, where they had to roll out a slab of clay, and a slab of clay is just a flat piece of clay. And then the students, they also learned a lot of patience with this, because I'm not sure if any of you remember doing clay projects or not, but it's not necessarily a quick process. And so they did a very good job of trying to get their slab nice and even. Next slide, please. And then they placed their plastic molds, because we used those as a mold on top of them. And then they were able to use a pen tool to cut out the circle that would fit down into the bowl. So after they did that, they used different stamps. We had a variety of different things that they could press into the clay. We kept it kind of simple because at the same time we were also doing more complicated clay projects. I thought I might be able to entice them to let me borrow their bowls if they had a second clay project to keep. And so they were very good sports with this, with letting me hang on to their clay bowls while they were doing this. So after they stamped their design into their bowl, they pressed the clay bowl down into the plastic mold, and that's where it dried. Clay shrinks a little bit when it dries, so once it was completely dried, we were able to slide it out of the bowl very easily, and then we fired it for the first time into the kiln. And there's a couple of examples. It's hard to see with the lights, but each bowl has its own little texture and design inside of it. So then they were able to glaze them. And I have some examples that I set out on your tables for you to see there. And, ironically enough, I try to guess every year what their favorite glaze colors are going to be, and it's never the same from year to year. And this year the most popular colors were orange and black. So we had a lot of Mount Vernon pride going on with our glaze colors. So some of the bowls are not, the bottom of them don't have the glaze on there, because when you set them in the kiln, if there's glaze on the bottom, then it can get stuck to the kiln shelf. So we learned a little bit of science and the reactions that occur with glaze and clay and different things as well. So then after we were able to take them out of the kiln, we set them up for our art show. We decided to call it an art show instead of the Empty Bowls project because my students had a really hard time with wanting to donate their clay project. I tried to let me hang on to them as a donation, but like I said, I'm not sure if you all remember making clay or remember making art in school, but sometimes it's really hard to let go of. And especially with clay projects, because that is the one project that it seems like everybody keeps. And so we decided to do an art show instead to reduce some of that anxiety of giving that donation and then you get yours back when you bring in a canned good, or if your friend brings in extra canned goods, or your teachers. And so we just did an art show instead. So just some more pictures of the different bowls that were set up. Each table was set up with their class so that the kids could come in easily with their parents and find their artwork. And the nice thing that happened with this that I didn't quite anticipate was the number of parents who came in with their children. We did this during parent-teacher conferences, just because most of the parents were already at the schools meeting with the teachers. I typically do not get a lot of parents who come in for conferences for art, and so I thought this would be a nice way to pull them into the art setting as well and discuss with them what their students were doing. And so many parents told me, oh, I took out this play piece that I kept from when I was little and I showed it to them and talked about them, and they talked about how they made it. And also several parents said, this is mine now. I'm not going to give this back to you. So it was very, very well received. And I think, I believe at Dan Emmett, I just did it on the one night, because one night I was at East and the other night I was at Dan Emmett, but Thursday night at parent-teacher conferences, I think I probably had about 40 to 50 groups of students with their parents come through my room just to see those, which is pretty good because it was really only for a short amount of time being split between the two schools, so it was a pretty good turnout. And there's that's a brother and sister group of ours showing off their clay bowls. Some more students.
A lot of smiles on these.
Yeah, they love clay projects, and so that's what we were able to collect in that short amount of time. And I kept some records so that we could divvy it out into the classrooms, so that way the kids got credit for their what they brought in for the Food for the Hungry drive. And I must say, one of my fifth graders, it was one of the sweetest things I had ever seen. She brought in enough canned goods for her entire class. And so she wanted to make sure that everybody in her class had something, so she brought in plenty for them. And the kids were very excited. I want to do this again next year because I think it teaches them a very good lesson of not just art, but it doesn't matter how young you are, you can always do something wonderful for your community. You can use your skills to give back. And I'm hoping that when we do it again next year, that it will have even better turnout with it. So, but they did a nice job.
I was able to stop over during the
Yes.
conferences and visit. They were beautiful. I mean, just the variety, the imprints and the designs that the kids used were absolutely beautiful. You did a great job on the projects. Thank you.
I happened to be in one of the other elementaries when they were just beginning, and that was very interesting, seeing the kids just beginning to work with clay. And I can also tell you, I still have my daughters that she made. It was yellow, because my kitchen was yellow back then, so I still have it. So you're right, people don't throw those things away because they're sentimental about them.
They do love them, so.
Yeah, they do.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great project.
I'm going to take them back.
What? You're taking them back? I thought they were
Return
gifts.
some, so I apologize for taking them back. I took all my keys in.
Oh, I know.
Thank you.
I'm thinking this would be a great project to put in our student achievement, to have.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe we can do that.
Our behind-the-scenes person is not quite here yet, so I think we'll just kind of continue on, if that's okay.
Okay. Are there some that would like to leave at this point, though, or do you want to wait?
I don't think so, as I look in
Okay.
the room.
All right. Then we'll go ahead. Items for information. The January OSBA update.
Hayden is here.
Talking about like reports.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped right over that.
Sorry.
Okay. And did we have any? Hayden is here.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi,
sorry.
Hayden.
Hello. So it's the new semester starts tomorrow. So we came back from Christmas break last week, and it was stressful because the second semester starts tomorrow. We were finishing up, had tests going on, getting back our exam grades. So that was kind of a stressful week for everyone. But it starts tomorrow, new classes, schedule changes. So I know everyone's excited about that. And we had our winter sports are kind of in the middle, kind of winding down, ending. And we had our swimming OCC champions on Saturday at Worcester. The girls placed 4th and the boys placed 6th. And but there isn't much else going on right now. But I have heard, from a couple students that the coat bending machines were replenished and that they're kind of excited about that.
Good.
But that's about it right now.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hayden, for coming out.
And no, nothing. Okay. And Mike isn't here. Okay. Did we have any public participation? Okay. Then we'll go ahead with items. Oh, thought maybe he was signing up. Okay. The January 2020 OSBA update.
So just an item for information to the board. There is a mental health and social emotional learning summit coming up from OSBA. And it's something where they're encouraging, if you have the opportunity as board members, to attend. I know that I've I think I've signed up to attend that event. This link is there for you to take a look at and see if that's something that you might be interested in. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention here. It's something that we keep really, quite frankly, very close to understanding where our students are and where our district is in the way of mental health, social, emotional learning. So that's an item for information.
And I think they're encouraging teams to go so that you can divvy up. They'll have lots of different sessions concurrently, so if several can go, that would be great.
So is that 4 different sites, is that correct?
No, it's on February 25th, February 25th, and it's at the Convention Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very similar to what they did last year.
No additions or deletions for tonight's board agenda. Under superintendent's report, I have a number of items for information to share, just some things that are going on. First and foremost, I decided at your station, at your place, you should all have received kind of a nice little folder. Some of you have received two folders. The first one, which is in blue, is kind of a neat recognition of being honored to be a part of the Board of Education. And so that was distributed to us. And secondly, January is Board Appreciation Month. And so each of you should have received a little certificate, a colorful certificate here. If you don't mind me, I'll just read it, and it's to each one of you. The certificate is presented to, you fill in your names, of Mount Vernon City Schools, in sincere appreciation for exemplary leadership and service to public schools. School Board Recognition Month, January 2020, planting seeds of success. And so I'd like to certainly thank all of you board members who are beginning to serve and those who have served. Anytime we get an opportunity to recognize you for your leadership, it's greatly appreciated. I know this is a small token, but one we want to make sure we acknowledge and share with you otherwise.
Hey, thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
A couple other items we're working on, things that I just want to bring to your attention. I know several of you have talked to me about substitute teacher pay rates. It is something that we're in the process of gathering a good bit of information relative to. It is something that we had on our radar screen as we finished up negotiations this past spring. And we did start to address some of the substitute rates who are not part of a union. And so I'll probably be bringing you some additional information relative to that, and perhaps any recommendations we might have as we move forward on substitute teacher pay rates. And then finally, under items for information, I'm going to pull this up. Everybody is always interested in, well, what's going on over there at the stadium? And so I try to monthly give you kind of an update as to what's happening. So this is as of today. So just a quick, I got lots of pictures, but this is just kind of a quick synopsis. In the field house itself, the exterior walls have been completed and the windows have been ordered. All right. The interior floors in the locker room, lobby, weight room, and wrestling room, those floors have been poured and are completed. Here at the end of the month, just short 2 weeks away, we're looking to pour the floor for the remaining part of the field house, which is the 4 courts, the 6-lane, 200-meter track, really, really big area. Looking at probably at least 2 days, if not 3 days, of continual pouring to get that pour done. The interior walls of the field house are in progress. Estimated completion is the end of January. I'll share with you some of those walls. We've ordered the hoop systems and nettings are moving forward. Over the course of December, since our last meeting, we did have a track surface bid process come to completion. And what that means is that's for all of the flooring, the carpeting, the weight room floor, the wrestling room floor, and then if you walk out to the track area, that includes all of the track surface and the court surfaces. Thankfully, with the help of folks, our bid process came in under budget, and that's always a good thing to see happen. And then, of course, when you look over at the bus transportation building, as you notice, it's still been kind of on hold there. In 2 weeks, once the interior walls are done, the masons will then just step right on over to the bus maintenance garage, and they'll begin to do the exterior walls there. All right, so to give you some pictures, I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit, and yet we'll take the board on a tour here soon. So this is what the front of the building looks like now. The siding has been put up. You'll notice all of the exterior block work is complete. The only openings left now are windows. The wood door is a makeshift door. That will be the main entrance as you go in from the stadium parking lot. Here's kind of a view from Yellow Jacket Drive. So you can still see to the far left. You can see the front of the building. but it's amazing when you drive down Yellow Jacket Drive, just how long
Yes.
the building is.
It's huge.
This is looking from Success Drive. Some people call it Tough Drive, but the first drive there, looking straight ahead, and then a little bit to your left, you're kind of seeing the size and the scope. Those are windows that are all going to be put in there. Here's another view, kind of looking more towards the MVNU soccer field. Again, all of the plastic there are going to be windows bringing in natural light. So those are some exterior views. If you go back to the front view where I showed you those wooden doors, if I would open up those doors and look inside, this is probably the first thing that you would see. Last month it was just a big empty open room. Now all of a sudden they're building walls inside. So this is really looking in the front door and looking all the way through to the back of where the track and the courts will be. Conversely, I took about 100 steps or so, and then turned and looked back at the doorway. So there's those wooden doors. Again, all those are windows above. This is going to be kind of that lobby area. And so you're going to see this start to kind of grow. Now, the one thing that isn't shown here, there are some interior walls, very few, but there are some that will be steel studded walls. So a lot of what you're seeing here are concrete block walls. There are going to be some steel studded walls, and so some of those will create, in this foyer, will be created for kind of offices and training areas. So as we move forward, instead of looking straight ahead at that front door, I just turned to the right a little bit. What you're seeing here is you're seeing the back side of the locker rooms. So that wall that you see right there, on the other side is a locker room. And I'll show you what a typical locker room looks like. But there's that little frame there. That will be the door that will go into the wrestling room. And if you look at that door frame and you kind of see what looks like a line that goes out to the door, they'll be building block wall that will go up just like that wall. That will become the hallway. And then we'll have all these windows looking into the wrestling room. Conversely, now if I just go from right to left, all right, and I keep going left, this is what it looks like on the other side of that lobby. So those walls that are up there, that's the outside of the locker room again. So on the other side is the Yellow Jacket side locker room. As you look all the way down to that door, all of this area here, there will also be a small hallway that goes out that door. Here's where our classrooms will be, and those will be studded walls. So they're going to go from almost that piece of wood that you kind of see to the left of the door, all the way back to these fans. They'll be building our classrooms, and that's where we'll have our board meetings. So you're kind of seeing the size and the scope of things there. If I just flip and turn around like I'm looking towards the courts, the restrooms are on the left-hand side of the hallway. So this is a corridor, a hallway corridor that goes all the way out to the gymnasium area and the track area. But our restrooms are real long. One side will be the men's and one side will be the women's as you're looking straight ahead. All right. If you look from the back side now, you're seeing that hallway again. I'm just on the exact opposite side, looking from the courts and the track, looking back out. On the right now, you see the restrooms, and that would be either male or female. I'm not sure how we've designated those yet at this point. From here, let's take you into the locker room. So this is a locker room that right now would be facing Yellow Jacket Drive. So at each end of our building, there's a way to come in. You're seeing that entrance there. And if I walk in that door and I stop right at the door and look straight ahead, that's kind of the view, all right? So I'm looking at two sets of locker rooms here. Those doors there go to shower rooms and they go to restrooms. But as I go forward again, now if I just look to my left, you see the room that is on the other side of this wall partition? There will be roll down, almost like roll down garage doors. So they'll be left up and we'll use the whole locker room, or we can put those garage doors down and we can split those locker rooms. So technically, if I take this exact same locker room and flip it, put it on the other side of the field house, I could have two large locker rooms or four smaller locker rooms. And so we think that can be the most advantageous for us. This is just a huge space. So if you look up at the middle left, you see that frame again I showed you earlier. You can kind of see it on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the wrestling room. All right, and it's looking at the wrestling room from the track side. The wrestling room is 100 foot by 60 foot. It is a really, really large structure, and one that we may even find ourselves with the ability to host and do some meets in there as well. It's of that size. Go to the other side. Here's the weight room. I'm actually looking at, from Yellow Jacket Drive, almost those windows, I'm looking at this. It's over a 4,000 square foot weight room. Inside this weight room, we're also going to have a 75 foot by 12 foot AstroTurf section in this weight room, so that some of our sports groups can use that area for plyometrics, for band work, for sled work. Really a new and unique concept in weight room efficiency across the country. So again, a very large room in itself. This shows you the weight room as well. So this is a hallway. It's like a secondary hallway that goes outside. But just to give you a sense, those are the weight room walls, but the weight room has lots of windows, so you can look in from the hallways or the lobby area. So they're nice big picture windows. And then just left of that, I mean, you can kind of see, I've just shifted over to the left. This whole area is storage, so that wall will go up. And so there are two doors that'll come from the track side in here, and we have to store all of our equipment in this area as well. And then I'm kind of getting to the final parts of it. Now I just took a quick step through, and that's where all the courts and the track will be. So I'm kind of sitting at that opening, looking all the way at the other end. That's the part that'll be poured in the next couple of weeks, and it'll look really, really expansive. One other interesting note here, when you're putting concrete in the floor, you have to take into account all the things that'll be in the floor first. Since this is a track area and we got long jump, we had to put in the frame for the long jump because they're going to come along later and pour the floor. And so you've got to have all of these kind of pits already taken care of. It'll be the same with like pole vault. You know, they have that box where you put the pole. We have to have all that set when they come and pour the concrete for that particular structure. Okay? So anyway, that is, I get to a fun one here coming up, but that is the progress that's going on right now, and I'm hopeful that when we can settle in on our board work session, that you'll actually get a feel for what it looks like in the coming weeks, as we'll take a little bit of a tour through there. Did want to point out something. I've given you a piece here. The storms that came through this weekend, we lost a light pole, and I'm not just talking any light pole. We have 4 lights that light up the football field. These are the big ones. This particular one on the scoreboard side on the visitor completely broke off. Now, interestingly enough, you see where it fell? It fell through an open gate. It didn't hit this barn. It didn't hit the track. It fell perfectly right on the grass.
And no one was injured.
And no one was injured. Now the lights are completely demolished. Here's our concern. You know, these were put up in 2005. We're bringing someone in to do some x-rays of the other 3 light poles, because that shouldn't happen on something of that. And so it almost looks like the steel gave way there. And so we really need to find out if the other ones are safe, because you could just only imagine in a different scenario or situation how bad it could have been. And this could have fell towards the field. It could have hit that, could have hit the press box, although some people say they wish it would have hit the press box. Not really, but you know, we've obviously got some cleanup and work we have to do here. And since I was in the picture mood, I thought I'd share one other picture. It's part of a donation coming up here. The Brian Ball family made a donation to the district, And it was, as Brian is a city engineer, he's always thinking in a unique way. And so he wanted to donate to Twin Oak Elementary, our newest elementary, new LED lights, because as ironic as it sounds, Twin Oak was built in 2005. It is our biggest energy consumption building that we have. And some of these old lights on the left just take up an enormous amount of energy. Not only do they take up energy, but the lighting isn't that good. So Brian and his family donated LED lights, which you can see on the right. They're much smaller, but look at the difference in the light that it puts out.
Yeah.
And so we're very thankful for that contribution from the Ball family. So that gives you an idea of our facility update. Hopefully it wasn't too long, but there's a lot going on.
Well, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so you've given us a lot of words.
All right, good.
Thank you for taking the time to do that. I know that took a lot of time.
We have 5 items under the superintendent section for board approval tonight. We've revised a maintenance job description. It's something that is just kind of boilerplate, but we've been working on. And so we had that for your review. There's also a letter of understanding from our OPSI union relative to the revocation of dues and authorization. You can only imagine that with our indoor track, item number 3 there, we're getting some interest as to students getting a jump on the spring season, looking at some indoor opportunities, but we have to recognize them as, let's say, a club or a school-sponsored sport, and so we're recognizing them there. But there is a recognition that there is no expectation for coaches or paid fees or those kind of things. It just allows our students the ability to participate. And then the final 2 are resolutions. Item number 4 is a resolution opposing the state of Ohio's Ed Choice scholarships and the voucher program. I know we've talked about that as a board in previous, and I think it's important that we're united relative to just the way that they've unrolled this Ohio Ed Choice scholarship voucher program. If that's the direction they're going to go, there just needs to be more conversation, needs to be equity, there needs to be some protections. And so districts throughout the state are passing that resolution this year. And our final part in the superintendent section is the authorization of membership to the Ohio High School Athletic Association. We do it every January. It allows us to be a member of that institution. So those 5 items for your approval.
Okay, thank you so much. And I would entertain a motion then to approve those 5 items as referred to.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Goetzman.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And were there any questions about any of them? Mr. Thompson? You look like you had a question.
No, I've been studying the resolution that we put forth on the Ohio Ed. I think I got my answers. So.
Okay. Okay, if you'll call the roll then, please.
Mr. Goetzman.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, we come to curriculum instruction, and would you believe I forgot all of my notes? I left them home, so I will kind of wing it, I guess. The very first article I remember was about it's athletes who get involved in helping mentor other students, so I thought that was a pretty interesting article. But other than that, I skipped to the research article, if you want to continue on down to and what this is about is reading a study that they did, and since I can't read it from here, I will try to remember it as well as I can. A research study that interviewed or surveyed, I think it was almost 600 teachers to find out how they taught reading in school. And one of the things that they found interesting was that I think it was over 75% were not really teaching phonics. They were doing what's called 3Qing, so that students would look at the pictures, they'd take the word in context, or just guess what the word might be from what they'd read thus far. So they're saying that that doesn't make any sense because we have a high percentage of our students who are in fourth grade who aren't really strong readers, and we need to be teaching the phonics. So essentially they're supporting that. The science shows that phonics really works, that students need to know how to sound out words, and I think we know that, but I thought it was a good study, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay.
I'd like to maybe take a step back, if that's okay, and
sure.
our guest now here from Dan
All
Emmett
right.
Elementary. So, Margie, if you would be so kind.
Would you like us over here?
Yes, that'd be great.
Well, I would like to welcome all of you. Nicole White. Nicole, they already saw part of your family before you got here, so I apologize. Nicole, I have to say, is behind the scene. It was unanimous. She is wonderful at Dan Emmett. Your son Brady is 7th grade? He's 7th grade, so she has been at Dan Emmett since he's in 7th grade. She also has Ethan, who's in 4th grade. And she just graduated last year. Criminal forensic, am I right? Forensic psychology. So she was out just watching and observing us through the window. Kidding. No. But to the point where she did this graduation and I won over her husband because he really wanted her to do something with that job. But I know he does, but she works with some of our most at-risk students, and we fight over her. No, I want her. No, I want her. No, I want her. She's going here. So we really appreciate everything. She's taken upon the battle of the books. So she's taken on PTO. Andrea, Katie, feel free. I know she does stuff for you guys too.
She always goes above and beyond, and anytime, I don't think she knows the word no. She always
doesn't yet.
She always smiles and is always ready to help, and a fabulous person.
She is.
I get to work with her. I've had both of her boys in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. So I'm through PTO, and I work with her every day with one of my little guys. And she goes above and beyond. I get numerous text messages at like 9 o'clock, and they're like, hey, I found this, or let's look at this, just to help him. So she does.
And Pam always hears from me too when we run out of a cat person. She's our sub.
Yeah, she's excited.
She's excited because she gets to do it again for 2 more days. So I would it is, but we appreciate it, Nicole. So I would like to have Mr. Cedar honor you.
Nicole, the Board of Education would certainly like to give you a small token of appreciation for all of the wonderful things that you do, for being a behind-the-scenes person. So we just thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, you're going to want to see this next piece, and then we'll go ahead, and if you feel like you need to skedaddle and get on out of here, we certainly understand. But Mr. Will is going to be sharing some information about graduation and requirements. And I'll give you this, I'll let you go ahead and work this thing out.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to share on the changes that we've seen this year with graduation options. So, MVHS graduation options. So our goal at the high school is 100% graduation rate with students moving on to employment or college or both. And so that's what we're striving for each year. And so this year, we've had some changes from the state in terms of what they offer students for graduation pathways. So I think I want to start out, and I just want to say what's not changing, and that's the students need 20 credits to graduate from Mount Vernon High School. So that's not going to change. That's still going to be the expectation. What is changing? So graduation options for the class of 2021 and beyond. So we're going to start with this year's class, actually with 2020. And for those students this year, they need 20 credits for an MVHS diploma, and then they need to meet one of the following 3 options provided by the state. So that's at least 18 points on the 7 end-of-course assessments, industry credential and workforce readiness, So that would be receiving an approved industry credential or group of credentials in a career field and the appropriate work keys. So that would be at the Career Center, or they can have a work keys option, which we'll look at the high school. But the three areas for the work keys are applied math, graphic literacy, and workplace documents. The other option would be a remediation-free score, math and ELA on the ACT or SAT, and I put the cut scores for the ACT. English would be an 18 minimum, math 22 minimum, and reading a 22 minimum. So those are the three options. Now, the state put in place for this year and last year's class 2 more options in case the student wouldn't meet the options that they provided. And I'm not going to get too hot and heavy into it, but the first option allowed for a capstone project, completing the work or community experience. College Credit Plus was a part of that. Industry recognized credentials, which we talked before, and the work keys exam. And then the second option was that students, once again, they could take and pass courses that would constitute curriculum requirements in the 7 end of course exams, earn a total score proficient or better on all career tech exams or test modules, industry recognized credential, complete a workplace experience totaling 250 hours with evidence of positive evaluations. So class of 2020, this was the criteria that they had this year to meet graduation. And so what I can say is that there are several options that the state has provided in the last couple of years, knowing with the transition to the end of course assessments that right off the bat that it would be difficult for some of our students who don't test well to get those 18 points. So now we have our options for the class of 2020 and 2022, and I've put all the links on this presentation. I'm not going to go over every single slide. I'll let you do that, but I'm just going to give you kind of the big picture. So for the class of 2021 and 2022, so once again, they want students to earn that minimum total of 20 credits from their high school. Then they have the option to show they're ready by meeting the original 3 pathways. So that would be the test pathway, the industry credential, workforce readiness, the college career readiness test. Or if a student didn't meet that, then a student could qualify under the new requirements, and these are part of the new requirements that came out for the class of 2023. And we'll go over that. So option 1, is going to be demonstrate 2 career-focused activities, and at least one of them have to be a foundational, and one of them then would be a supporting, or a student could do 2 foundational. But one of them had to be a foundational. So that proficient score on web exams, 12-point industry credential, pre-apprenticeship, or acceptance into an approved apprenticeship program. The supporting would be work-based learning, the required score on the work keys, and then earn the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. Option 2, enlist in the military. So a student would have to show evidence that they have signed a contract to enter a branch of the U.S. Armed Services. Option 3, complete college coursework. And initially, you think, okay, college coursework, we have a lot of kids doing College Credit Plus, but it has to be, they have to earn credit for 1 college level math and or college level English course through College Credit Plus. So they still have that math and ELA that the state wants to see. And they have to show readiness. And so then they get into one of the seals, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And so there are 12 seal options that you see up there, but when we get to the honors diploma, understand that there's 6 different honors diplomas that a student can earn. So really, we're looking at 17 options for students in terms of earning those seals, which the local control is going to be 3 of those seals. And so for that class of 2023 and beyond, all students must demonstrate competency on the Algebra 1 and the ELA 2 end of course exam. So all of our students will have to take those two assessments. If a student does not show competency on the first attempt of those assessments, then the school will put a remediation plan in place, and then a student will take a second attempt before moving on to the next option. So this is where we seal the deal. So once again, and I talked about the two tests the students are going to have to take. So they're going to have their 20 credits that they're going to earn. They're going to have to show competency on that Algebra 1 and English 2 test. If they don't, the high school put remediation together, and then those students will take that test again. If they still don't pass that test, and I think that this is where we see some benefit, is we don't have to keep retesting students over and over again in a test that they haven't had success with. So then the state gives the 3 other options. So once again, and we talked about it with the class of 21 and class of 22, they can demonstrate 2 of the career-focused activities. So 1 foundational and 1 supporting, or they can do 2 foundational. Military enlistment, and then that completion of the college coursework. And then when they've done that, they have to show readiness on 1 of the seals. And so there's the Ohio Means Job Readiness Seal, Industry Recognized Credential, College Ready, Military Enlistment, Citizenship, Science, Honors Diploma, which I said we have 6 different diplomas that students can earn with that honor seal, Seal of Biliteracy, Technology Seal, Community Service Seal, Fine and Performing Arts Seal, Student Engagement Seal. So at least 1 of the 2 has to be Ohio designed. So they have to earn 2 of these seals. So 1 has to be Ohio, and then the other can be local. When we initially started talking about this, we looked at, okay, what is going to be something historically that our students are going to succeed on? And so we look at the citizenship seal, looking historically on how our students have done with U.S. history and government, and also with what our kids have done in biology, looking at that science seal. But there's other pieces to that as well besides just having that test. And so what I want to do is I want to show you the 3 local seals that you're going to look at as a board tonight and decide whether to approve them or not. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the end of this. And like I said before, all of these are linked, so you can get in and see what those seals contain. Clicking on the Honors Diploma seal, you can see there's the Academic Honors Diploma, the International Baccalaureate Honors Diploma, which we don't offer, Career Tech Honors, STEM Honors, Arts Honors Diploma, and Social Science and Civic Engagement Honors Diploma. We actually have a young lady who's working on her Arts Honors Diploma this year. So that will be one of the first of the different honors diplomas that we've given. And so that's been a neat experience to kind of walk through how that's set up. So these local seals, and what we wanted to do is we wanted to make them something that's meaningful to our students, and it's going to promote engagement. So whether that's in the arts, whether that's in community service, whether that's in different clubs or sports or other activities within the school. So the community service seal requirement, what we're looking for from the student is that they complete a minimum of 15 contact service hours in a minimum of 3 different locations. So we felt that it would be good for students to get 3 different experiences, because we have a lot of students that could get connected in that one place and put in 15 hours. But we really want to have them have that well-rounded experience with that. So a supervisor at each location would sign off on the student's log of hours during each day of service. And so this is the log sheet that our guidance counselors would use in order to track that. We have the Fine and Performing Arts seal. So many of our students that are in our visual and our fine arts classes do different contests and performances. And so what we want to do for that is we want a student to have minimum of 3 consecutive years of participation in a school-sanctioned fine or performing arts course. So whether that's choir, band, orchestra, our art courses and our course of study handbook, and participate in at least one sanctioned competition aligned with their 3-year participation and have instructor sign off. So OMEA contest, governor's art show, those types of things. So besides just being part of that and then being in at least one sanctioned competition and having that experience. And so then of course, our teachers would sign off once they've completed that. Close to these tabs. And then our last seal would be our student engagement seal. And once again, we have a lot of students that are involved in many activities beyond just athletics. And so that student would have a minimum of 3 consecutive years of participation in a school-sanctioned club, sport, or activity. Participation must be for the full season, year, and a student will not receive completion status if a student is removed or quits attending the required participation for that particular club, sport, or activity. And so that would be a coach or advisor signing off for that student. And what we want to do with these local seals, if approved, is make those available for students their sophomore year, and that would be completion over that sophomore, junior, senior year. So we don't want to wait till their senior year and say, hey, get it all done. We want to give them some time to do this, and we want to encourage them to take advantage of that local seal option. And I really think that the local seals encompass a large part of our student population. And so that's kind of the big picture. Once again, the different seals, I have links. You can go in and look at them. There's still a couple of the seals that the state hasn't given clear guidance on what that's going to look like, but I am assuming that's going to come this spring, and we'll be good to go for this fall. Any questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
How does it work when we have a student that transfers in from another school district that, how does it work like if for the 3 consecutive years, but they may come in their junior year and could they make up that time and do everything in?
I think, once again, when a student transfers in right now, we have to look at some of those courses, and even though the codes match up, that naming might not exactly match up. Or when we get into the local seals, some schools already have adopted very similar seals of that nature. So we just have to look and see what we can make fit, and then try and get the kids, if they have something that they want to do, that we do our best to be flexible and make it available for them.
And I would say that Scott and the high school staff have worked collaboratively with surrounding districts. We all have the same or very similar local seals.
Okay.
So that transient piece can work together. But, it's amazing when you look at just the changes legislatively relative to just graduating.
Yes.
I mean, most of us in here, we got the required number of courses and we graduated. And how it's evolved over the years, I've never seen such a quagmire of stuff now. I mean, we have 3 classes going on right now. Your graduating class, the juniors and sophomores have a different set of criteria, and the freshmen, they have a different set of criteria. And now we've added all of these seals and all of these extra things. I mean, the guidance counselor role relative to this is going to just be incredible.
And how, Scott, not to get on the day-to-day information, but how is that being maintained? I mean, these kids are coming with these hourly signed sheets. How are we making sure those do not get lost in the shuffle so that a child kind of gets lost saying, I've turned it in, processes in place,
I think
schedules.
the blessing is our school counselors at the high school are very, they're very thorough, and they want to be on top of things. And so they all have their spreadsheets of where kids are at, monitoring. Do they have their hours? Do they have their work keys? Do they have those things? I know working with our kids at the Career Center that haven't necessarily met the testing requirement or the industry credential piece yet, I know that they spell out when we're in meetings of where the kids are, what they have achieved and what they haven't at this point. And I really think it's just going to be staying organized, and it feeds into the success plans that we talk about, is that we have to have that plan for each student, and as they complete this, scan it electronically, put it in that electronic folder, and make sure that we have it.
I think what you're going to see is every student will have their own folder. We're calling it a student success plan, where we have to keep and track all of this stuff. Probably do it electronically.
Okay.
But yet you can only imagine all the stuff that we have to kind of maintain. I will say that from a testing standpoint, I mean, we went from 7 end of course exams for this class. The next 2 classes have 6 end of course exams. They're still in line with that. And then this freshman class, they only have 2 end of course exams. So we've lessened a little bit of that. ACT is still required. But now we've got to try to strive for all of these seals. And so there we are.
Yes.
I have another question. What about our students with disabilities, severe handicap? How do they work into our plans?
Right now, what we've tried to do with those students that aren't alternately assessed, we've been able to use the different pathway options for some of those students. I think with the SEAL piece, we're really going to have to look at where the strengths are of those students coming in, and really get them in a direction that they can focus on those pieces. And I know we don't like to say the word tracking, but when you look at the SEAL options, you really have to have a good idea of where that student's at and where they're going to be most successful, so we can put them in a position where they're going to be able to graduate and earn their diploma.
And how does the parent piece work into that? I mean, are there parent-teacher conferences where, like, a parent can have input into what direction a child might?
Well, what we've done so far with the graduation, especially with the SEAL changes, we haven't met with parents yet, because I wanted to see if the state was going to have any more clarification on some of the things that were still yet to be determined. But this spring, we're going to have parent meetings for our freshmen and go through what that looks like. Our parents have done a good job of really staying on top of if a kiddo's in question, with the test not being the option of, or are the kids doing the work keys, are they doing their hours? And so our guidance counselors are really, they're really on top of it in terms of trying to communicate to parents of what the needs are. But the challenge is still the high stakes piece, and how we continue to prepare kids and get them in the right position to be successful.
Thanks. Thanks so much.
I first heard this at the OSBA, one of the breakout sessions, and saw a lot of head shaking in the room.
Like this?
A lot more like this. Right? And some pretty interesting questions coming from and some of, like you had just pointed out, right? But just out of curiosity, since that seemed to be the awakening for me when I was sitting in that room, conceptually, when did this type of an approach first come about, and how much time has there been since this concept was put out there to now you're having to put it in play?
Well, I believe conceptually, the spring of last year, we heard a lot of discussion about the changes. We didn't quite have an idea of what it looked like, exactly what the requirements were going to be, because when you get into it, there's a lot of this and this and this. I think initially we were hoping that this or this or this, and it didn't necessarily pan out that way. I think the encouraging piece to it is that there's a lot of different options that are there. it's really going to be tailoring it to that student and where their strength is going to be to attain that. So there is. I mean, when we looked at it this fall when it first came out and we started planning, there was a little bit of panic mode, I think, at first, just looking at the different requirements of the different seals. But I think the thing that we looked at and decided is that we don't want to limit what the kids have an option for, because you could easily look at that and say, okay, we're going to focus on these 3 state seals and then our 3 local seals. But then what if you have that kiddo that really has a strength in this area and we don't make it an option? And so we're just going to leave it open, and it's going to be up to us to make sure that we are able to keep it all in track.
You know, I think the real tipping point, Steve, was when we were with the 7 end of course exams, and there became this realization with the cut scores where they were, that 30 to 40% of seniors were not going to graduate because they couldn't make these cut scores. So then they started allowing little opt-outs, little carve-outs, and then those carve-outs then end up becoming seals. And so now we've gone from 7 to 6 down to 2, you know, so there's been that little bit of a less importance on that one day taking that one test to some more of these options, which in that case are good. It's just going to be a real tracking challenge.
And wasn't it the case that the cut scores kept going up every year?
It did.
Which makes no sense, because why would you expect the next year's class to be better than the year before and have a different standard? The whole philosophy was messed up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an opportunity then for a motion on this.
We have under this section, one item for board approval, and it is to approve those 3 locally defined diploma seals. Again, it was a community service seal, it was a fine and performing arts seal, and a student engagement seal. Those will be the ones that we have created locally. We need to have board approval for those so they can be added to all the state seals.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Goetzman. And were there any questions?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you, because when I first started looking at this, especially the way that the state had it on the website, I was just like overwhelmed. So I really appreciate the work that the high school's done to make sense of all of this. So thank you.
And I think the key will be sharing this with parents and helping them to understand it too, and students as well. Okay, any other questions? Okay, call the roll, please.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
This is a free time. If you want to kind of slip on out, you're welcome to. If you want to stay, feel free to stay.
Okay, fiscal services.
Might click under there.
Yep.
Point a little bit out.
Thank you, Mr. Will.
Thank you, Scott.
Before we move on, I wanted to spend just a little bit of time here. Conceptually, sometimes this can be a little bit difficult to understand because it looks like, you know, we have $12 million. Obviously, $4 million of that almost is sitting in our insurance fund. And based on bond placement funds and some other things, what we really have is, I'm trying to make sure I got my bearings here, is this $2 million. Not that we don't have the $4 million, but it's not liquid for us to use or so on and so forth. So I point this out because you have this amount of money coming into a month, which is a lot of money, but when there's 2 payrolls in a month, almost $2 million will leave the district. Now, some will come in from the state in the form of foundation funds. About $800,000 will come in this month. So we were really getting close to the point where I felt uncomfortable leaving some of our investments out there, and that's why I've been pulling them back in. As you may, I don't want anyone to look down at the $12 million and go, well, why are they pulling these investments back in? What we really have to focus on is that number right there. So as Mr. Cedar continues to scroll, this is a very boilerplate. There's not much on here that would be out of the norm. There's really nothing on here. What I will share with the board, and I'm going to email it to you tomorrow, as I've been continuing to work on the forecast. We're at a point where, and this has nothing to do with me. I am learning a lot. I have a great staff. We are at this point, now we're not that far into the fiscal year, 99.84% accurate on what we forecasted with the forecast that we just approved a few months ago. Again, that has nothing to do with me. That's the software. That's the
great.
staff that we have down in my office. But I will send you that report tomorrow. As you continue to scroll, this has been a pleasant surprise, even with changes in the market and so on and so forth, and pulling back this money. This is actually coming in higher than what we forecasted based on the fact that we knew we were going to be pulling millions of dollars back into our account at First Knox from our investments so we could pay for the construction progress that Mr. Cedar detailed earlier in the meeting. So this has performed better than we thought, so that's excellent. We'll take it. As you continue to scroll, that's the money that the board had decided to invest even before we received the gift from Ariel. So we haven't done anything with that. We've continued to invest it and roll over the profits. But if you scroll down, that's the one that continues to shrink because we're drawing this money back to pay the bills as the construction process continues. And that's why on the first page, I wanted to point out why we keep pulling it back. It's yes, there's money out there, but it's earmarked for specific purposes. So if there's no questions on that, I will head back over here and read the donations. I can answer questions from here too, I guess. All right, we have a donation honoring Karen Wright, Tom Raston, and Maureen and Jim Buckwald to Dan Emmett Elementary. Little People, Big Dreams book series. We have a donation to Twin Oak Library from Florence Shermer in memory of Sandy the dog that visited the school and let the kids read to her of 3 books. We have a donation from Mary and Phil Samuel in memory of Sandy the dog that visited the school and let the kids read to her of 10 books, also to Twin Oak Elementary. We have a donation that was previously mentioned by Mr. Cedar from Brian Ball, the city engineer, in the form of new LED lighting in the Twin Oak Elementary Gymnasium, with the idea that the rebate we get through AEP will also be utilized to continue with LED projects. So we have a donation from Storyside Church in the amount of $600 to pay off unpaid school lunch balances. That was donated to Twin Oak Elementary. We have a donation from Heather Waugh of 2 books to the Wiggin Street Elementary. A donation from Patty Shannon, $150 for Mrs. Sweeney's class to go to the Spy Spot, and that was to Dan Emmett Elementary School. We also have a book donated in memory of Ronald C. Nielsen, father of Kathleen Bundy, who is a cook at the Mount Vernon High School, and that was donated to Dan Emmett Elementary.
Thank you. Okay, would entertain a motion to approve those fiscal services items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Ms. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Legislative liaison report.
You can look at those 2 links at your leisure. I'd like to focus just on a few things, mainly regarding the Ed Choice program. OSBA outlined some solutions for the state on this Ed Choice voucher program, so I'd like to highlight what they suggested, OSBA suggested. That first, the state should directly fund new vouchers. Second, that buildings must have 2 or more components within the state grading system before qualifying for Ed Choice. The third item is replace the current default mechanism to make the income-based voucher the default when a student qualifies for Ed Choice. Right now, if a student qualifies for a state-paid voucher, the payment comes from our school district. based on building eligibility. The fourth item is if the building performance improved during the safe harbor years, the Ohio Department of Education should use that data for Ed Choice eligibility. The fifth item was remove the K-3 literacy measure, which makes a building Ed Choice eligible. And the sixth is performance should be measured by 3 consecutive years. Next, the ODE should, Ohio Department of Education should look at the overall building grades because the legislator deemed the old law as unfair. So they need to recompute that whole grading system. And then next, any building with an overall grade of A, B, or C should not be subject to Ed Choice eligibility. And lastly, require high school students to be enrolled in a public school before applying for Ed Choice voucher. So those are all things that the OSBA has suggested as positives towards changing the Ed Choice voucher program. They're still asking for our input from all the different school boards across the state to let our legislators know that we don't agree with the outline they've given. I did send an email to Governor DeWine expressing my opinions about this, and hopefully I'll hear back from him sometime. So anything else on the bill tracker, it's easy to see what we have going on in the state. We still have just had one actual bill enacted out of all of the ones that have been introduced. So, do you have any questions or comments that I can take back to anybody?
Thank you.
No, just my pause on the resolution earlier was only because I'm still trying to get caught up in all of the complexities of it, and then OSBA's overall position on it. So I certainly understand and wouldn't have voted yes on the resolution if I had paused, but I understand the main thrust of it. But obviously, gotta stay in touch with what's going on here.
Yeah, and there's, when we were at the conference and they started talking about this, there was deep concern from all of us. I mean, how do you decide we're going to pay for a child who hasn't even attended
That's what
our
scares
schools?
me the most.
Right.
It's upside down.
Yeah. And I don't think the public maybe understands that if a student is attending private school and under this, then the following year, if they decide to go to a charter, that tuition would come out of the public school, which it didn't the year before. It was being paid by the parents. So that's going to be a huge impact on schools across the state. So
I'll keep abreast of it as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for writing to Governor DeWine.
I would have written, actually, printed it out, but my printer was still not working at the time, so I had to do email. I don't care for those very much, but I'll get a printed copy to him sometime soon.
That probably wouldn't hurt. Okay.
Under items for recommendation under this section, I have a number of items. First are free facility requests. Again, it's always a blessing to have facilities that our community can use. You see those 3 there. We do have a number of items for requests that will be billed at applicable rental, and that's usually just custodial fees on the weekends. Item 3 is just actually approving the contract with Coca-Cola. We just got done renewing a contract with them not so long ago, and realized that we need to formalize that in the form of a contract with them. And then items 4 and 5 are some change orders to the Gateway project. In a couple of these, the first one was a very simple one. In the original proposal from Medina, we had bus parking included in the guaranteed maximum price. we took that out of the contract because we did not lease that land yet. We didn't go through the procedures to have that land. And so we didn't want to get the cart ahead of the horse, so we pulled it out of the original contract. Once we got into the lease agreement with MVNU, we put it back in. And so that's what item number 1 is there. The second change order that we did was really kind of expediting the Yellow Jacket Drive base work and paving that was performed by Smalls this fall. We thought we were only taking a small step towards that. Opportunity became available to take a bigger step towards that. And so we took some of our allocations and worked it through Adina to make that happen. So those are 2 change orders we want to keep you abreast of.
Okay, thank you. And I would entertain a motion to approve those business services items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And were there any questions?
I don't have a question, just another comment. I continue to be overwhelmed with the generosity of our community and the people who have contributed to these big projects. It's just amazing to me. So,
We're very grateful.
very grateful.
Anything else? Would you?
In the Coca-Cola agreement, looks like a lot of boilerplate language here, but this is negotiated by us or, okay.
It is. And you know, the bottling contracts of the past were much more lucrative than they are today. You'll find that the contracts today, especially since they can't put those kinds of refreshments in schools during school time like they used to at one point in time, have diminished a great deal. So you're looking at some remuneration for that contract that's I guess supplemental to that.
And as you heard, the students are grateful that the vendors are being refilled, so. Okay, anything else? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried, thank you. And student services, there are no items, is that correct?
No items under information or recommendation of student services.
Okay, we'll go to personnel then, certificated
Under personnel.
licensed staff.
Yeah, no items for information. We have a number of items for board approval. In section 1 is the employment of substitute teachers. And then in item B of that section, we have hired a math teacher to finish out the year in that position at the high school.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve those 2 items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Goetzman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Goetzman.
Yes.
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. And classified staff.
Under classified staff, no items for information, 3 items for board approval tonight. The first are 2 resignations that you can see listed there. I would mention that Sabrina Wicker has been with the district for a good number of years, and she has, almost a little tearfully chosen to move in a different direction, but we certainly appreciate.
Now, whose tears?
she's
Pam's or?
Yeah. So we're working feverishly to try to replace that position. It's just, it's a tough time of the year to do that. Item 2 are substitute employment, and then we have a 2-year contract for a bus driver. Those 3 items for your approval.
Okay, I would entertain a motion for those items.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oop. I'll let Tim do that.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. And were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Gulladye.
Yes.
Mrs. Goetzman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And is there need for executive session?
I do have a short need for executive session. It'll be for the employment of personnel.
Okay. I would entertain a motion then to go into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Mr. Gulladye and Mr. Thompson. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, we will go into executive session. Thank you all for being with us this evening. It's been an exciting first meeting.